Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Human Bytes series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're taking a look at an interesting episode from a game between Dinara Wagner and Wagner-Kashlinskaya at the Munich FIDE Women's Grand Prix that finished recently. I just got attracted to it because there was a vicious little tactic, and it occurred from a very typical position that you find from many different openings. This one occurred from a sort of a Semi-Slav opening, but you also see this type of structure where black pawns on c6 and e6 face a white pawn on d4. You also see this in the Scandinavian and the Caro-Kann. And normally, if black has managed to get this sort of structure with plenty of pieces exchanged, then black is supposed to be doing absolutely fine. But then it always interests me, when something that's supposed to be absolutely fine turns out to be a lot more difficult than you realised. And, this was why this game appealed to me. So, what is the situation? Well, as I said, pawn c6 and e6 against pawn on d4. White's got a slight space advantage, but on the other hand, black's exchanged off so many pieces that the danger against any black wing, the queen side or the king side, seems rather minimal. There is just one thing that black's got to resolve at the moment, because there's pressure against the b5 pawn, and this rook on d6 is a little bit exposed. White's actually just threatening knight e4 here to attack it. So black resolved both problems with takes and knight f6, and this makes a lot of sense now of black's position. These two rooks on the d file are attacking this pawn on d4. I mean, the pawn on d4 in this structure, it gives white a space advantage. It restricts c5 and e5. On the other hand, it isn't protected by any other pawns, so that means that black can pummel it with pieces. And here white played a very interesting idea. I mean, the engines don't consider that it gives white any advantage. They tend to prefer, slightly maybe other ways. But I think, in a human game, it's challenging, definitely. And as we can see, black definitely had some problems dealing with it. So queen e5, hitting the pawn on a5. Black played queen a7. Which is quite decent, defends the pawn on a5, also joins in the pressure against d4. And now the engine was looking at playing knight a4 to go knight c5, and actually looking maybe to try and get some sort of invasion along the b file, which does look like a slight advantage for white. But Wagner played c5, and after rook d7, then rook g3, making use of that rook on the third rank. I think John Nunn was the one who I always quote, saying that rook on the third rank is a huge attacking resource, and it definitely is true. And I mean, when we move the rook over to g3, we're threatening queen takes f6, and black's got a number of possibilities. In the game, Kashlinskaya played king f8, which turned out to be very, very serious indeed after rook takes g7. We'll have a look at that a little bit later, but you can see that a big blow is landing. So actually the only other move that black's got, and actually the best move that black's got, is to play knight e8. And quite interesting to see, how can white try and make something of this? I mean, you've gone forwards and you've gained space, but, black remains solid. And, of course, if you don't do anything at all, then, black's going to have some pressure against this d4 pawn. It can also end up going a little bit wrong for white. So I started spending some time looking at knight e4. And what can black do here? What is white's threat? Well, white might have a threat of knight f6 check. Rook g7, not going to work immediately, but always a possibility. We might also have the possibility of playing the rook to d3 and then aiming for this rook g7 followed by rook g3. So those are the sort of things that are coming in. We've got one more thing that we'll see a little bit later as well. One idea that comes to mind is to play rook d5, which is not a bad move, but actually more risky than I'd realised when I started analysing. So knight f6 check is the best idea. You could try something like queen f4 with the idea of rook d4, rook here, and then knight f6 check. But simply a move like king f8, we get out of that check, and then rook takes d4 is threatened. And, not easy to see what attacking chances white has got. So you need to keep on making inroads in the black position, and that's knight f6 check. takes, g6. And now we've got this move rook e1, and it surprised me a little bit, but it turned out to be turns out that black's got to be very precise in this position to avoid immediate disaster. I mean, the key thing to notice first of all is that rook f5 allows queen takes d8, so that's one thing you've got to watch out for. But obviously white's got threats now of, in particular, rook takes e6, fe6, rook g6 check, which is going to win. Well, how do you want to deal with that? Queen d7 looks like a good way of, protecting the e6 pawn, bringing the queen a bit closer to the black king, and also, really lining up on that d pawn. But actually, rook takes e6, surprisingly enough, works very well. If we go fe6, I've just got this force mate. Just show it once, because it crops up many times like that. And if you play queen takes e6, I've got a lovely little idea, which is rook takes g6 check. So fg, of course, unprotects the queen. And if you go king there, I've got this lovely sequence of checks to pick up the queen. And, well, whatever you do, king takes e6, queen h6 check. Black's got so many weak pawns, black's definitely going to pick up some pawns, but white's queen is just going to ravage the rest, really. So, this is a really powerful position for white. So, queen d7 actually loses. Also, slightly surprisingly, rook 8 d7, which I thought would be quite decent, because you're going to have this rook, covering any checks on the second rank, and well, at the same time you're still lining up, still giving yourself a chance maybe to get the queen across and chase away the queen on f6, because this rook on d7 is no longer hanging to the queen. Rook f5 is also a threat. But here we've got this rook takes g6 takes and rook takes e6, which is really strong. I mean, we're threatening rook e8 check. If you go rook d8, I've got rook e7, which is, well, winning the queen, going to be very dangerous. If you go queen to b8, I just go queen g6 check, and rook g7, there's rook e8 check. And king f8, I just go rook f6, which is going to be terminal. We just end up going rook f8 check to win the queen. And rook g7, which was the one that I thought of originally, just to stop white from playing rook e8 and then rook h8 checkmate, fails as well. Actually, you just, with a sequence of force checks, you can coral the black king. King here, queen e8 checkmate, and king f5, I go queen h6. I'm threatening queen f6 checkmate, and after queen f7, g4. I've got rook f6 picking up the queen, and then actually afterwards the rook as well. So yeah, I mean, I was quite surprised when I started analysing just how precise black had to be. Actually, black's got one move here, which is to play the move rook to e8 and prepare queen e7, also defending this one. And this is absolutely fine for black. Black's just going to be able to hold this. What did I think? I thought rook e5 was quite nice, because there's a nice little trick in there. If black just goes rook takes c5, queen takes c5, something like queen b8 maybe, then it should be just about equal, basically. But if black's a little greedy and plays rook takes d4 in this position, then we've got this move rook h5, and well, it looks quite dangerous. I mean, we're threatening queen takes d4, also rook takes h6, but it looks as if black can just deal with this with queen e7. But I mean, when you're attacking with major pieces, things can get very dangerous, and this is actually quite beautiful what happens here, because white's got rook g6 check, takes. Now we can't go queen g7 because of queen e8. That's very important. So king f6 and then queen h6 check. And well, it looks, you sort of think, well, is this really dangerous? Because this rook can't get across to the f file to give any checks. So it feels like black's king is a little protected. But actually, after queen g7, we go queen f4 check. Obviously, king g8, I've got rook g5. If queen f7, I've got this clever move, which is rook h8 check. And after king e7, I've got queen h4 check. And if you go king d7, I've got rook h7. And my goodness, we are pinning the queen there. Yeah, I mean, that's just an amazing thing, really. If you go to e7, I just go queen h4 check here straight away. And again, I'm going to have a rook h7 to pin the queen. If king there, I go rook check first, king f7, and then rook h7, or queen h5 check in that position. But basically, you know, just yeah. Again, I was quite surprised at how many dangers there were for black in that position. Rook e5 is the best, just keeping it tight at the back, and then you're actually surviving. But yeah. Well, it looks like rook d5 basically in this position is a good move to hold, but there's a lot of precision required along the way, which hadn't necessarily occurred to me. Now, what other moves does black have? Queen c7 is one idea, which is just intended to exchange off queens, and you know, obviously, if you exchange off queens, then this d4 pawn might become weak. Then we've got knight d6 from white. This is the other thing that white's got as an attacking idea. If knight d6, queen g7 checkmate. And you can't drive away the white queen with f6, because then you've got queen takes e6 check. Rook e7 was what I was looking at in actual fact, just protecting the e6 pawn, looking to play f6. And there's various ideas of doing it. The engine wanted to play knight c4. Actually just claiming a slight advantage here. I mean, you're attacking this pawn. If you take on e5, I take with a knight. I'm going to attack this one. I'm going to try and invade maybe along the b file, you know, and start attacking stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's weak pawns here. You know, the pawns on c6 and a5 are quite weak. So that's quite an interesting line. My actual line was to play rook dd3. The idea being that after f6, I go knight takes c8. And I thought this was very clever. If you go queen takes c5, I go d takes c5, and the key point of having played rook dd3 is that the rook's protected. It's not unprotected on d1 now; it's protected. So you know, if you do something like rook takes d3, for example, now I've got knight takes f6 check intermediate. Wasn't quite sure whether that rook ending was absolutely winning, but I'm definitely going to be a pawn up. However, the engine found something, of course, that I'd missed, unfortunately. Curses! F takes c5, knight c7, and now not rook c7, d takes e5, when again you see the point of having played rook d3, but simply e takes d4, and after knight a6, rook a7, my knight is trapped on a6, which is extremely steaky, rather painful, and I'm very irritated with myself that I didn't see that. So yeah, I mean, queen c7, but yeah, knight c4 is what the engine thinks with a slight edge. There's another cunning idea. You could try and play not queen c7, but to play queen b8, where you know the idea is simply that well, this queen at least is maybe threatening to come into b2, and who knows, you may be just slightly more flexible on b8 rather than c7. But there's a really great idea here. Take a moment to see if you can spot it, because it's absolutely gorgeous. It is. Well, knight d6 is possible. It's not stupid at all for white, actually, because you're going to get rook b3 into b7 with tempo. But there's something even more gorgeous, which is rook takes g7 check now. Knight g7, knight f6 check. And, well, if you go king f8, then knight takes d7 check is rather horrible. Rook d7, there's queen b8 check. And the same thing as well, actually. If you go to h8, I just play knight takes d7, and yeah, you can't take it because b8 is hanging. So queen e5, knight takes c5, and well, white's just completely winning there. So that's another gorgeous idea. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, you know, it's why I always enjoy, you know, looking at positions like this, really, because, you know, you just see this one little tactic and then you just delve deeper and try and understand, you know, how does the whole thing fit together? And often you're just amazed to see, you know, how much richness there is, you know, even in these positions. We're coming now to the moves that I thought were probably the best. King f8 was one idea that I thought was you know, kind of almost equalising for black. I mean, you're just getting out of any rook g7s or knight f6s, and well, you're lining up on this pawn. Now, if I go knight d6, then you go f6, because after queen takes c6, there's no check. I thought that white might just be a tiny bit better in this position because this king on f8 is a little bit awkward, and you see that in a number of ideas. For example, if I take and go rook takes, then this idea queen c8 check and queen h8 is really dangerous for black. There is a little counterattack that black can try, but rook g7, queen c8 check. I actually stopped my own analysis here, but I was pretty sure it was going to win, and I think that's pretty clear. What was it? Was it? Oh no! Wait a minute. It was. I was going queen e8 check. That's the one. King f5 and queen c8, and after king f4, queen g4 check, and the rook on d1 disappears, as well as quite a few other things. I think pretty soon. So. Yeah, I mean, just this move queen f5, I think probably the best move is to go king g8, but you're just a little bit awkward there, although this should obviously be a draw. Actually the best thing to do for black, I think, is to play the move king to h8, and the idea then is if we go knight d6, f6 takes, then the king's already nice and safe on h8. There's no ideas of the queen trying to sneak into h7 or anything like that, and yeah, I mean the position's just basically equal. Eventually black will trade, well, the d pawn will get traded for the a pawn basically in normal play. So yeah, king h8 was absolutely the best line there, but yeah, quite a few interesting tactics there. Now what Kashlinskaya did, she didn't do any of that. She played king f8, which was rather incautious because it gave white this lovely blow, rook takes g7. King takes g7, knight e4, and yeah, I mean, black's big problem really is that white's knight will get into f6, and then yeah, the knight's so good there. Basically, it's it's definitely worth a rook, and the black king's weak as well. However, it's not lost yet. And the engines were showing some quite nice chances here, and actually really based on noticing one key tactic, and actually Kashlinskaya sort of noticed what the right idea was during the game, but just didn't quite manage to implement it in the best way. I mean, queen b8 is the key idea, which is fair enough. Challenge that queen, check king h7. And then how is white going to proceed? Well, one thing that you might think of is, let's get this rook involved, get all the pieces to the party. That's what people say. But then you notice the cunning point of this move, queen b8, because rook d3 is impossible due to queen b1 check. So actually, this queen not only sort of hit the white queen, force white to come with a queen on f6, it's also stopping this white rook on d1 from getting active, which is really very important. So queen f3 is an idea, looking to get some knight f6 fork going. King h8, knight d6, king g7, queen g4, king h8, queen h5, king g7. We want to bring the rook in again, but again queen b1 check will happen. So yeah, rook e1 was an idea of the engine, and then black takes on d6 and takes with the rook on d6. Why do you take with a rook on d6? Well, again, the idea is if rook e4, we can go queen b1 check, which is again very nice. In any case, if you get this queen b1 check idea, then the queen has some possibilities for covering the king's side. So it's a very useful defensive move to have. So this move queen b8 would have been better. I mean, the engine was only seeing slight to clear advantage for white after that. Obviously, very much improved the position, but it's not dead yet. But rook d5 was played by Kashlinskaya, queen f6, king h7, and now yeah, the engines really want you to play rook d3 and start bringing this rook over, because yeah, obviously black's not stopping you from doing it. So that's very important. Queen h4 was played by Kashlinskaya, which is a very natural move, looking really basically to regain your material as quickly as possible. And the interesting thing is that again the engines are saying queen b8. Stop this rook from getting into d3 again, and this position is not so bad for black, because well, this pawn on d4 is weak, the queen can enter. We've got the rook sort of sweeping the fifth rank if necessary, and we'll even have ideas like e5. Yeah, the engine thought, you know, slight advantage for white, but not so bad. And yeah, you know what the yeah, again, you know what the engines wanted to do on the previous move was, yeah, make sure that all the pieces are really getting into the party before black's able to stop white from doing that. So Queen h4 was played, Queen a6 was played by Kashlinskaya, which you can see the idea. I mean, you know, stopping the rook coming to d3, absolutely correct. But that queen's rather far away from the king's side. It's not, you know, on b8 the queen is sort of cutting across a few of those squares, whereas on a6 it's purely looking at the queen side. And well, actually, it's quite an unusual idea that the engine wanted. Not knight takes d5. After knight d5, rook d5, again, the engine thinks that this is only a slight advantage for white. Again, because of the weakness of the d4 pawn and the fact that the rook can kind of cover the black king from any checks to start with. And, well, from a6, actually, of course, the queen's got a number of invasion squares. But actually what the engine wanted to do was not take the material. I think, you know, you do realise that, you know, those days where we thought that engines were just materialistic, you know, they've gone completely, because they're just, they're doing everything for the attack, basically. Knight g4 is a very nice one, hitting f6, freeing f6 for the queen, and the idea is just to swap the knight around and put it on e5. And this is just, you know, really, really dangerous. I mean, if, I mean, the threats of mate, there's knight g6 checks, and I mean, this rook is also coming along even to f3 even. So, you know, it's just really a horrible position for black. And this one was +4, I think, for white. Whereas, you know, taking on d5 was only you know, a slight edge, plus 0.3. But Dinara Wagner managed to win that in the end. So yeah, I mean, both the white and the black players had a lot of decisive games, a lot of exciting ones as well. So maybe not such a surprise that they produced a decisive game between them. But yeah, I like that very much. I mean, I like it when you discover all sorts of rich ideas in typical, you know, kind of dull positions where, you know, normally you'd say, this is nothing really for white at all. But you know what the white player here managed to inject into the position was great, and yeah, the tactics that came out of that I found very, very instructive, and I was very, very happy that I'd spent some time analysing them. So hopefully that can help you in your own games. You get this from the Semi-Slav, from the Scandinavian, or the Caro-Kann, or even the French. You know, it's hopefully this will be useful for you too. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you like the video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, also now a Chessable course. 24 hours of me of video. What could be better than that? And otherwise, thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.